Yo, what's going on, guys? Today's build is a crit-based Armageddon brand Chieftain. Armageddon brand was nerfed a bit in patch 3.6, but the ability is still very strong for all content in the game. This is a very budget-friendly setup. My current gear is around 3 to 4 exalts, but you can easily pump more currency into the build to scale it even higher. First up, let's talk about how Armageddon brand functions. The ability creates a magical brand which can attach to nearby enemies. It will then periodically activate while attached, causing a meteor to fall from the sky and deal damage. The brand detaches if the enemy dies and then can reattach to another nearby enemy. As you can see from the gameplay, there's a slight delay between the brand attaching to an enemy and the meteor dropping. Through passive points on the tree, we're able to have 5 brands out at once. Normally you can only have 1 brand attached to a single enemy, but through the Runebinder keystone we can have a second brand attached to a single target, effectively doubling the single target damage. Armageddon brand is an area skill, so it activates on the enemy that it's attached to, and then it also deals area damage to nearby enemies. Then we have the brand recall gem. This is an instant cast skill that recalls all the brands you have out to your character. All 5 brands then activate and can overlap their damage, giving a huge single target spike. Because this is instant, it's also great for mapping. You can run right through a pack with phasing and instantly recall all your brands and keep moving. Brand skills feel like totems without issues with your totems dying on harder boss fights. Because you're dealing damage yourself, you're able to leech life. The downside of this, though, is elemental reflect maps will need to be skipped. I decided to go with the revamped Chieftain Ascendancy for a nice mix between regeneration, physical damage reduction, and pure damage. For normal lab, we'll go into Ramako for the fire penetration mostly. It also gives some ignite chance and more burning damage. Cruel lab is going to be Hinekora. This gives fire damage leeched as life, 10% increased strength for more life, and then a 20% chance to cover rare or unique enemies in Ash for 10 seconds on hit. The Ash debuff makes enemies take 20% increased fire damage, for effectively a 20% more multiplier. Merc lab is where we pick up some serious tankiness. Thessalio gives 100% fire resistance, which makes gearing extremely easy and makes the build even more budget. 2% life regeneration as well, 10% of physical damage from hits taken as fire damage, as well as 50% increased life recovery rate if you've taken fire damage from an enemy hit recently. This will proc off of any physical damage we take, because 10% of that physical is taken as fire. Probably the most powerful effect from the Chieftain Ascendancy, it will increase any life recovery, including life regen and life leech. We're also unaffected by ignite. For Uber Lab, we'll path into Tahoa. This gives consistent endurance charge generation for physical defense along with some damage. Now this is just the order that I decided to take the Ascendancies in, but take them in any order that you see fit. Next, let's talk about the gems. I'm currently running an Elder Helmet with socketed gems are supported by both Immolate and Concentrated Effect for a pseudo 6 link. This is one of the reasons why this build can be extremely budget. Obviously if you want to shell out the money for a 6 link chest or staff you can. It'll make the build more flexible and a bit more powerful, but you gotta pay for it. The 6th link is Armageddon brand, Immolate, Concentrated Effect, Controlled Destruction, Combustion. The last link is either going to be faster casting for more Armageddon brand activation frequency. This is especially strong for mapping. Or you can replace faster casting with fire penetration or an increased critical strikes. Brand recall linked to a level 3 Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge grants cast speed, more spell damage, and mana regen. The 3rd link here is going to be a level 3 Empower, which increases the level of Brand recall. Brand recall gets more cooldown recovery speed per level. Flame Dash linked to faster casting is going to be our movement skill. Orb of Storms linked to Curse on Hit to apply our Assassin's Mark for more crit chance, crit damage, and also power charge generation. The 4th link here is going to be Culling Strike, instantly killing enemies that are at 10% life or lower. We also have a level 1 cast when damage taken set up with Wave of Conviction. This is level 1 to make sure it procs often. Wave of Conviction applies exposure, which gives minus 25% of fire resistance. You can also link any golem of your choosing to cast when damage taken here. For auras, we're running both Anger and Herald of Ash. I'm currently running a Vol Ice Nova just to help out with Legion clears. I have this linked to increased critical strikes, increased critical strike damage, and increased area of effect. Rounding out the gems is Vol Righteous Fire and Steel Skin. Vol Righteous Fire lasts 4 seconds and gives more spell damage during the effect. I decided to self-cast Steel Skin in this build. You can easily put it into a cast while damage taken setup if you want to automate it. This guard skill gives you effectively a life buffer while it's active. 70% of damage from hits is taken from the buff before your life or energy shield. That's going to move us right into gearing. The staff is going to be the Dusk Dawn. This thing gives high block chance, crit strike for spells, elemental damage as extra chaos, 1% increased crit multi for each point of attack damage block chance, 60% critical strike multi if you've dealt a non-crit recently, and increased spell damage if you've dealt a crit recently. Dusk Dawn pairs perfectly with one of the new Legion jewels, a Kalova Lethal Pride jewel. This is going to change the Mind Over Matter keystone into Glancing Blows. Glancing Blows doubles both attack block and spell block, but you take 50% of the blocked damage. With this staff and a few nodes on the tree, it's very easy to get to max attack block. And with the life recovery rate from Chieftain, this effect is extremely powerful. By doubling your attack block, you're increasing your crit multi with the staff as well. For rings, we're running a Mark of the Shaper for a ton of damage. Mark of the Shaper gives increased spell damage if your other ring is an Elder item. So we're running an Elder rare ring with life, resists, and added fire damage to spells and attacks. Added fire damage to enemies that are ignited is also a nice mod here. The belt is going to be a Stygian Vice. Try to get high life and resists on this piece. For the Abyssal Jewel, the most important thing is to get a percentage chance to gain phasing so we can run around unhindered and brand recall while mapping. For gloves, get high life and whatever resists you need, along with the added fire damage against burning enemies mod. Boots are high life, high movement speed, and resists. I'm currently running a cast speed if you've killed recently lab enchant. For the amulet, you're looking for high life and whatever resists you may still need, again. And for damage rolls, I'm running crit multi, cast speed, and spell damage. For the chest piece, I'm running a Carcass Jack for the increased area of effect and increased area damage. For a more defensive option, you could run a Combs Heart if you want to shell out the money for that, but you're going to have to drop some gem links to do so. You could also run a Belly of the Beast as well. And then the helmet we've already discussed. For unique flasks, we're running a Wise Oak for the fire penetration, and then a Cinder Swallow Urn. This gives enemies ignited during the flask effect take 10% increased damage. You also recover life and mana on kill during the effect, and then the one I currently have regens 3% of life during the effect. Great synergy with the Chieftain Ascendancy. I'm also running an instant life flask with bleed removal. A Blood of the Karui would also be a very good life flask here. A diamond flask with curse removal, and then a quicksilver flask with freeze removal. One of the more expensive items in the build is a Watcher's Eye jewel. This gives fire pen while affected by anger. This is absolutely not needed, but it is powerful. For the rest of the jewels, look for life percentage rolls and then damage. For Pantheons, I run Soul of the Brine King for majors, and then you can run whatever minor you see fit. For bandits, either help Alira or go for the 2 passive points. Here's the finalized passive tree. I'll go ahead and drop a link to the path of building in the info section of this video as well. Keep in mind that the new Legion jewels do not show up in Path of Building currently. You're going to socket the Lethal Pride jewel in right below the Mind Over Matter keystone in that jewel slot. So anyways, that'll about wrap it up, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to leave you with an Uber Elder kill. Now, I did take 1 death in this fight, but this build is more than capable of killing Uber Elder deathless if played properly. Take care, guys, and I'll see you next time.